Good morning. Welcome to Q and Amaco. I'm Kara, and today I will be answering your questions. And while I'm doing it, I'm going to be glazing. I'm sorry, but my Stream Deck has, there we go, decided to go to sleep on me. So while I'm glazing and while I'm answering your questions, today I'm working on a little vase with smugs, and I'm going to be putting lotus flowers on it. So what I do to kind of plan out what where I'm going with this, and I look forward to hearing your questions. Hi, Teresa. Good morning. So I have my vase, and it might be difficult to see with my lighting, but I am going to sketch out my lotus flowers. And I'm doing this with a graphite pencil. It'll burn off completely. Some colors have a hard time with graphite pencils, but I'm not using any colors that will be particularly difficult today. So I'm going to be using a variety of products. I'm going to use smugs, these semi-moist underglazes. I'm also going to use underglaze pencil. Hi, Susan. And hi, Kate. Hi, Heather. So in addition to the smugs, I'm going to use underglaze pencil and some chalks as well. So I have my smugs here, and I have my chalks, and I have my pencil. So in preparation, I actually have a little underglaze. It's an underglaze applicator with water in it, so that I can soften up some of the colors that I want. So I put some on the pink, and some on the purple, and a little on maroon. And I have some light yellow. I also have the light blue and aqua and blue-green for some of the backgrounds. Karen says, please explain the difference between food safe and dinnerware safe. What is the best way to determine dinnerware safe on a glazed cup? That is a very involved question. So food safe is FDA recognized for lead and cadmium release, and that's it. Dinnerware safe means that it is appropriate for use for dinnerware and should be not just that it won't leach, but that it also has a durability issue. I have to check with our lab to see what our dinnerware safe statement is, but I know that we don't currently put dinnerware safe on any of the glazes. Now, there were some at one point that did, but we don't currently. But I can go into that more in a glazing with Amaco coming up. I actually have that planned for a couple weeks. So Karen, I'm going to park that and bring it back. Arden says hi, and Der Girl says, if I'm looking for a watercolor effect, is there a big difference between the smugs watered down or the velvets watered down? Is there a pro-con between the two? So the velvets are meant to be applied rather heavily, whereas the smugs are, you don't really water them down so much as soften them up. And so so you can see as I'm applying, you get a different effect, and it's more color and less clay, so they kind of, here I'm going to move this over here so I can reach my water. So you get more of an underglaze effect, and they move around more like an underglaze. And I'm going to show you, let me see which one of these tiles pulled these all out, and then I realized this isn't. So, for example, this is at cone 5 with a clear glaze over it, and you can't see that because my selfie camera's in front of it. Here is this color that I'm applying here at cone 5, and this is thick and then with increasing water. So it's watered down as I applied it thick here and then watered it down. So you can apply this just like an underglaze and get different effects. With the velvets, you can water it down, but it's going to be still going to have that clay, and you're not going to have quite as much of the watercolor effect. Some people really like watering down the velvets, and that works. That works great. But I really love how the smugs go on. It's different, and they are formulated differently. They are not just pans of velvet color. They are a different thing entirely. So let me see. So I know that there have been some questions, some interest about the new Potter's Choice Flux glazes that will be coming out in early summer. So, oh, I changed colors there. So if you stay, I'm going to have a sample piece towards the end of this video before we leave. I have an example of the honeydew to show you. I'm going to work on this for a little bit. So part of what I love about the smugs is just, like I've said many, many times, the watercolor effect. And it kind of goes on like soft and fluid, so it looks more like cloudy, if that's the right word. Kind of mixing that aqua and sky blue together a little bit. Good morning, Kathleen. I'm glad to hear you love the smugs. How do you like to use them? Do you use them like this with a glaze over them at the end, or do you put them on top of a glaze, or some other combination technique for them? Heather asks if there will be a sample pack available for the Flux line, and no, we do not have plans to have a sample pack. In the past, we did sample packs for new glazes to hand out at large conferences. We did not do that for this year, and so no, there will not be a sample pack. Can say that if you love Honey Flux, you're going to love the new PCFs. They are based on on Honey Flux, and they're absolutely, all of them are absolutely beautiful. I know it's really kind of a leap of faith when you're like, it's a new product, but I think that you will just love it. So let's see. Oops. Do I have to apply 2 or more coats to ensure they don't burn off? So, Kathleen, so what I did on this tile was I put water on the smugs like you saw me do earlier, and then applied them with a heavy amount and then with more water, kind of watered them out. so that they faded out. And you can see that the colors are quite strong. That is one coat. That's not multiple coats. Now it was pretty thick, so like, you know, I can kind of brush a little heavier to get more color, but more so than most underglazes, the smugs will look, when they're fired, they will look the way they do when you apply them. Now that will be altered by your clay body. So if you have a clay body that's got a background color, they are not fully opaque. They do best, just like a watercolor, they're going to do best on a white background. But it will come out looking pretty much like this. Now if I apply it over a matte glaze, like if I apply SM11 white or LG 11 white for low fire people, the colors will be brighter than when I use it as an underglaze.
You had a question from Arden that kind of goes with that.
Okay. Can I use it together with the velvets? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can use it together with the velvets. And it's just like using any other underglaze in terms of using it with other products, but in terms of applying, it goes on a little differently. So,
and Dear Girl asked if they can be ordered individually or in sets.
Can the smugs be ordered individually or in sets only? We used to offer them in individual pans, but we have discontinued that, so they're only available in sets now, although some of our distributors may still have individual pans for sale. So check with your Amaco supplier. You may be able to buy individual pans and put together a set. But we have 4 sets with different colors, and you can buy them that way, which I think is simpler just for applying, because it's just like having a watercolor pan instead of individual pans. I'm going to let that dry for a moment. And so Kathleen says, so far I use smugs as a watercolor effect, and then I apply a clear glaze over. I'm always interested in other techniques. One thing about smugs I love is they don't go bad. I love that too. You can keep them forever. It doesn't matter if they freeze. It doesn't matter if they dry out. They still work just as well 30 years later. They last forever. At least that's my experience. A few years after I had to take a long break from pottery, the colors, the pans actually last a very long time because the color is so concentrated. These get a lot of use, and it's very rare that I have to replace any pans, even in the marketing department where we go through product very, very quickly. And they do last forever, so if they freeze or if they dry out, they still work exactly the same as ever. So you don't have to worry about them going bad. They simply don't go bad. And being dried out is their normal state of being, so they don't mind it. Let's see. And LaDonna asks, can you fire them to cone 6? Yes, you can. So these tiles that I made recently, these are each of the sets at cone 5. Some of the colors may fade a little bit more at cone 6. I think this pink maybe. But most of the colors you can see actually are quite strong. This is set 111, and the colors are very, very vivid. This one, so I did apply the clear glaze directly onto the raw smug. I did not bisque these first. And you can see they did not smear. I did have to be careful with applying it, but they didn't smear. The hunter green did crawl a little bit where it was thick, so that's one that I would warn you to, you might want to bisque that one or apply it very thinly. But all of the rest of them came out absolutely perfect at cone 5. I mean, that blue-green is just beautiful. That's the dark blue, which looks like this before it's fired, so don't be surprised when it says dark blue. It's dark blue, but it looks purple in the pan, and it fires dark, dark cobalt blue. And then here are some more colors. So they actually keep their color quite well. Some of them may fade, so I recommend that you test them. And if you're using a clay that is speckled or buff, you might want to apply a white underglaze and bisque it on, or a white slip that's bisqued on.
Couple more questions.
Okay. Oh, Arden, I missed your question about if they're applied heavier, will they bubble? I have not had any experience with them bubbling. The only issue I've ever had when they're really thick is, like you could see with the hunter green, it caused the glaze to crawl. But that, as I said, the glaze was applied directly onto raw smug. It was not applied to bisqued smug. So I think that it crawled because it's a little dustier than the other ones. Generally, I don't find that there's any issue overall. I'm going to switch to a different brush.
Then Heather asked, do bottled glazes go bad? Celadons, fluxes, BC,
So
etc.
Heather's asking if bottled glazes go bad, and they don't go. There's only 2 Amaco glazes that I know of that really expire, and one of them has been discontinued, so that's not an issue any longer. And the only one that I know that I would specifically say it reaches a point where you cannot use it is saturation metallic. All the rest of them, they'll dry out, they'll get hard, they get difficult to reuse. There will be a point where you don't want to use them because it's just too difficult to rehabilitate them and get them back to a good brushing consistency. But we target a shelf life of 3 years for all of our glazes, and generally you ought to not stockpile glazes to the point where you're not using them within 3 years. But most glazes, even if they're past the 3-year point, can certainly be used, and many of them can be used just fine without any kind of mixing or additives or anything else for at least 3 years, if not much, much longer. So glazes don't go bad in the sense of like milk goes bad, but they get more complicated to use. And velvets and underglazes, when they dry out, it gets really hard to mix them where they can go on smoothly again and be used the way that they could when they were new. So that's why I say these are great because they last forever, is that they actually, it doesn't matter 10, 20 years after you get them, they work just exactly the same as they did when they were brand new. For some reason, I'm not seeing any comments. Here we go.
I got some for you.
Oh, Jody asks if I am working on greenware. No, this is bisque. Although you can apply the smugs to greenware, I find that it tends to be difficult to get them to stay put because the wet of the clay and the wet of the smugs, because these do have a lot more water than a regular underglaze, depending on how thickly you're applying it, how heavy a mixture you're using. So they I am using them on bisque. I find that it works better. You can use them on greenware, but I find it works better on bisque. Let me see. Kyle asks, I assume these can be painted onto paper and then used as transfers. I suppose you could. I haven't tried that, and I don't know how well they would transfer, but certainly you can try it. Now this one you can see on my pencil marks that I changed my mind a lot. But as I said, the pencil all burns out. I'm not going to try to erase it. I'm just going to underglaze right over that.
Do you re-bisque before glazing?
You can. Jody asks, do you re-bisque before glazing? And I sometimes do. I feel like it kind of makes my underglazes set, so I don't have to worry about them smearing when I glaze them. But for example, I did these tiles and glazed directly over the raw smug without rebisquing, just to see if there would be much smudging, and there really wasn't. It was really pretty, it was really pretty stiff. I got a little drip. Now, just like with using watercolors, you can't really like erase it, but there are some things I can do to like remediate a boo-boo like that one. So I'll use water and water it down and then kind of float that color off. Hold on, I have a towel. Here we go. So DerGirl asks, can you talk more about applying them over a white glaze? I use low fire. At which white glaze works best? I really like, for low fire, I use the LM, that's the low fire matte 11 white. So it is a white matte glaze. You could also use the TP, I think it's TP10 cotton. And those are both the LM and the TP are low fire glazes. And you can apply the smugs directly on top. Actually, David, would you get the Monstera leaf plate from the... thank you. So I actually did a demo for ClayShare not long ago where I did exactly that. I used the smugs on top of the LM11, and it came out beautiful. So what I do is I apply 2 to 3 coats of my matte white glaze to bisqueware, and then when it's dry, I apply the smugs directly on top. Oh, I need that. Which green do I need? Do I need the warm green? I think I need the warm green. With a little bit of chartreuse. You know what I might do? That is the one. Thank you so much, David. So this platter is 2 coats of LM11 white, and then I painted directly on top of it with the smugs and fired it to cone 05. So you can see it makes really just a beautiful image.
me she wasn't sure if LM11 is still available.
It is still available. It is still in production. It has not been discontinued. Talk to your local supplier about getting it. But there, you should be able to find it.
And where does the smug name come from? Is it an acronym?
SMUG is an acronym. It stands for, let me see if I have it on one of these, semi-moist underglaze colors, underglazes. So SMUG for semi-moist underglaze. And that's why we call them smugs. The packaging says watercolors for ceramics, but we call them smugs. And that's where it comes from. Semi-moist underglazes. So I'm kind of just doing blobby green areas at this point because I'm going to add some green from the chalks, I think. Although it looks like I only have the very dark green. We'll see. Oh, and some orange for the. That was thick. That went on rather thick, thicker than I wanted. So if it's too thick, you don't want it quite that intense, just use some water to lift it and lighten it up. And yes, they can be mixed like a watercolor. So if I want to have a little bit of green here, a little bit of this green, a little bit of this green, I can mix them together to make a new green. Very easy to do. Very easy.
Jody asks, will Amaco ever sell directly to the public that they used to?
We do have plans to reopen our website to direct sales. I do not know when that will happen, but that is our plan. So yes, we will someday be selling direct from our website once again. There have been, we are getting a handle on our production and shipping so that it's not as complicated as it was a year or 2 years ago, with making sure that our distributors were supplied. So I do hope that we will have direct sales before the end of the year, but I cannot give a direct time. I can't say exactly when we might be able to do that. So before I move all the way around, I don't want to run out of time to do my chalk drawing part. So I'm going to do a little bit of chalk. And yes, you can see I'm just going directly over the smugs. I'm kind of using it for lines. And then I can get this wet. Jody asks, what is the criteria for discontinuing glazes? Usually glazes were discontinued if we had material issues, if we had low sales in a particular category. This past year, with production and material issues, we were forced to kind of accelerate that process. But the decision is not made lightly to discontinue products. So, and in a lot of cases, it was not so much that we discontinued products as we discontinued certain sizes or offerings for them, but the products could still be purchased in different sizes. Our low fire offerings, we do have some plans for glazes coming up, and that was also a big consideration, is that our warehouse space was getting very, very limited. And with plans to bring out new products like the PCFs and more products coming out this fall, that we really did not have the space in our warehouse, let alone in our production schedule. So that meant that something was going to have to get discontinued. So our sales department, along with other parts of the company, make the decision on what can be discontinued, and I do not know all of the criteria that are used for that. Now, I can also make the use water with the chalks to kind of soften those lines, because they are underglaze.
Kara, was the leaf with the chalk technique?
No. So
I'm wondering if you have anything done that has the chalk technique.
I do, actually. The color on this did not come out the way that I had expected, but this is a combination of underglaze pencil and chalks. So the underglaze pencil is the black lines, and everything else is the chalks. So all of this is chalk, and then with some of it I went back and used water to soften it, and in some areas I went back over, so it's kind of a scribbly, rough sort of line like you would expect from using a pencil or a chalk in artwork. So I don't have any other examples of it, but yeah, the leaf is only the smugs. That's it, just on top of the low fire mat. But I wanted to do something a little different today, so I'm having fun with my little lotus vase.
And I might not have been paying attention, but did you address that? Can they be mixed like watercolor?
I did.
Okay,
so
that's what I thought.
Kathleen says, oh, I need to get some chalk. That's going to be beautiful. I think it really is going to be so much fun. And Jody asks about PCFs. So the PCFs are a glaze that is coming soon. It's our Potter's Choice Flux glazes. You can see them on our website, and you can talk to your local distributor about ordering them. They are distributors are able to pre-order, and they should be shipping out to distributors the end of the end of spring or early summer. Where's my, there it is. So you should be seeing them on distributor shelves this summer. And I do have a sample to show you guys. So I'm going to set these aside for just a moment. And what I have is, this is the Potter's Choice Flux 18. This is Honeydew on Aardvark's Black Cone 5 clay. Is this called charcoal? Charcoal. So this is Aardvark's charcoal clay, and this was fired to Cone 5. And it is just a beautiful pale, pale green, and it breaks over the texture, just beautiful. So that's a little sneak peek. Wowzers is right, Kate. So beautiful. So, so beautiful. I think we're all going to be really excited when these are out in the world. And like I said, if you like the Potter's Choice Flux PC17 Honey Flux, you are going to love the new PCFs. They are so pretty. On dark clay, on light clay, layered. We've been playing with them a bit, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to put some squiggly blue lines on top of my blue. It might not show up a lot, but a little visual texture never hurt. So it is past noon. We've been here for more than half an hour because this is just so much fun. I love playing with the smugs and the chalks. And I have underglaze pencil that I'm planning on using a little bit on this as well, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. So maybe I'll finish this up in 2 weeks for our next Q and Amaco. And if you have other questions, please drop me a line. You can just drop it in the chat for the video, and I will get to it later. I really appreciate everybody being here. Rachel asks, I jumped on late. Do the chalks and smugs both work at cone 6? The chalks I would test because some of the colors I found can shift a little bit. So I would say test if you're going to use the chalks. Most of them do work fine at cone 5. And as for the smugs, my experience is they work great at cone 5. They might be a little bit softer in color. And Jody asks, so we won't have to layer over Honey Flux to get colors? It's going to be different colors, so if those are the colors you like, but you can also layer just to get more color and more variation on the PCFs. And Kate says, I just found a place to fire my work until I get my kiln set up. Gonna have to get some of those new glazes. It's gonna be so much fun. So I will see you all next week. Thank you for joining me on my glaze journeys here, and happy glazing.